Hey everybody, High Lord Tamerlane back with Obscurities in Miniature. Today we're going to return to Mars, to the land of Barsoom, and take a look at the Thark models that Modiphius has just recently released for their Kickstarter. So I figured out how everybody is, I hope, supposed to go together. We're going to just assume that's the case, and give you guys a quick look at what to expect if you are interested in picking up a Thark Warband. And of course you are, because they're Tharks and they're giant four-armed green Martians that were invented over 100-something years ago, and you'd be crazy not to. So, here is the assemble group. As you can see, with a GW Mini, they go right up to the middle of the waist on most of these models. And what's interesting is these guys actually are all a bit bigger than the Carter Thark model that came in the Heroes of Barsoom set. I don't have Carter Thark handy, as he's currently in the midst of getting started with his paint job. Hooray! So let's take a look at each individual figure and see what's what. So we have our first privateer looking guy with his two pistols. And again, these models seem a lot larger than the Carter Thark model, which is kind of surprising, as Carter Thark was supposed to be, the big shot of the group, the leader of the tribe. I don't know who these guys are exactly. I'm trying to figure out what this weird stitching is. I guess it's just to make it easier to distinguish the details in the armor. Obviously, those are bullets, so I know that much. I'm talking about on the folds of his clothes. I'm not sure what color we're going to paint them. You notice there are quite a few noticeable gaps on these models. That's something that, if you're hesitant to play with green stuff, that could be a problem, because I mean, like you can see right here with his neck, quite a big gap there. He also had a rifle. There's 3 rifles. As far as I can tell, they're all identical. Since these were computer sculpted, the guns themselves, I guess they all were the same. I thought there was some difference here. So you can see these are their long Giselle-like rifles that models such as this guy are actually firing. I know I lamented in the last video when I popped these guys all open the fact that nobody was actually firing the rifles, and that's because he got lost under the table when I opened the box and couldn't find him. In fact, he's probably my favorite of the bunch. Interesting pose. I don't like the fact that none of his pegs actually wanted to fit in the holes, despite me drilling, and again, you can see there's quite noticeable gaps that are going to need some filling before I actually go ahead and prime these. Next up, we have our Swordmaster looking guy, because why have one when you could have 3? And if you've ever listened to anything that I recorded, you'll know that the more arms, the merrier for me. The more weapons, the better. So this is a particular favorite of the group, despite, I think, our long rifle friend still is my favorite. This guy would probably be in a very close second. And after that, we have our friend here with his 2 pistols and an empty hand and only 1 sword. The thing I wanted to point out about these swords is they have these really weird handles, and I broke quite a few of them, and I don't know which ones I glued back onto the bottom of their fists and which ones are lost to time immemorial, buried somewhere deep in my carpet or in the vacuum cleaner. Here's one. You can see here. He's missing the little tip of his... Oh, crap. Well, he's missing an arm now, too. That's okay. So, some of the contact points weren't the most deep and recessed spots. And again, you'll probably remember if you looked at the first video I made about unboxing these guys, that there was quite a lot of cleanup involved. And there's still a bit of cleanup on all of them. And then there's this paunchy fellow, and I'm assuming he's the leader of this warband, since he's the flashiest of the bunch, and he's also missing a tusk, and he's got more, fancy armor on. And if you paid attention, his swords were all broken. This guy really required a lot of work to fix up, but thankfully he did seem to go together quite easily. I do like the fact that he is so heavy set. You can see the folds of his belly right there. The deserts of Mars have been good to this fellow. It's got like a crown type thing. Now, the overall detail of these models was quite nice. It's comparable to what they've been doing with their Fallout Wasteland Warfare models. Nothing too complicated. It's not like we're talking mere levels of intricate, tiny little parts. For the most part, we had a body and the arms and the base, and that was about it. So if you're rather inexperienced building resin models, I don't think that these guys are going to pose that much of a challenge. They're not that difficult. They do have nice scenic bases included. That's always a plus. You don't have to come up with something on your own, which is one thing I absolutely dread, is trying to come up with some kind of interesting base, and I just go to my typical fallback of just, you know, gravel painted gray and light gray. But I'm quite happy to have these guys. I think these are the nicest looking green Martians that I have seen in some time, and they're also officially licensed, which it makes it even more nicer if you're worried about that kind of stuff, because I know there's quite a bit in the gray area of people making models that are absolutely supposed to be based on other people's intellectual properties, and especially old properties like the Burroughs novels that, you know, they've just kind of gone ahead and made their own models despite not having any permission. And while there's a time and place for that, it is always nice to get permission. So, overall, cool models. Definitely a lot larger than a typical human figure. So, despite this guy not having his arm, and despite not having their guns glued on their backs, overall, I am quite pleased. I want to say these guys were about $30, 30 euros, 30 pounds, somewhere in that range. I'm not sure what they're going to be once they hit retail. Hopefully cheaper, because cheaper is always better. So, keep your eyes peeled. They should be on the market in the near future. And with that said, this is High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities in Miniature saying, see you later. Bye-bye.